Sure. So, good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Madison said, Abby and I are sad to not be able to be there in person, but we are pretty accessible here in Fairbanks if you want to email or talk to us later. So a lot of people know about AVO's GeoDIVA database. That's an acronym for Geologic Database of Information on Volcanoes in Alaska. And so I'm Cheryl Cameron, and I created and built and managed this database for more than 20 years, from 2002 to just earlier this year. But in February, I accepted a different position here at the state of Alaska. So I am now the Geologic Hazards Section Chief. And while I still have some of my time devoted to AVO work, it is a small fraction of my time instead of all of it. But the great news is that we have Abbey Nastan here, who is also a geologist with AVO here at the State Division of Geological and Geophysical Surveys. And she has been working here for 2 years and is become an expert on the database and has already improved it from where it was and is growing it and taking it further. And so AVO and GeoDIVA are in excellent hands. And so that's why I've put her contact information, email here if you have questions after this talk. I mean, of course, you are always welcome to reach out to me, especially like if you want to know about things in the long ago. But for things moving forward, Abby is really a great option, and AVO and everything is in excellent hands. And so we'll start out this talk. I'll walk through the first couple of slides, and then Abby will take it away. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of like framing information about what is GeoDIVA and what's its scope, where are its boundaries. And so it contains information on volcanoes and volcanic products that are in Alaska, younger than 2.6 million years. So the Quaternary, basically, as I already said, started in 2002, but it's really had a bottom-up development. Everything that's in the database is because somebody came to us and said that they needed it. So we haven't built things just because they sounded good or to make a big top-down management view of things, which is a philosophy that you'll see has guided a lot of building the database and explains a lot of various different quirks and nuances. This database is the back end to AVO's public and internal websites. It doesn't store any time series geophysical data, but it does store observations about time series geophysical data. And it's been constructed, I think, as many people know, over years as a series of interlocking modules. We did not sit down and draw up a whole ER diagram of hundreds of tables all at once. Some of these modules are more complete and thus more usable by others than other parts of them, and we continue to make forward progress. And so right now, the whole enchilada is more than 300 tables in MariaDB. Next slide, please. So here is a little this is a famous slide, although Abby has improved it by somehow, I'm not quite sure how, cramming yet another module into the little horizontal dimension of the slide. We're going to have to come up with a new graphic sometime soon. But we've also added here for all of you to see which modules are more usable, especially by people outside to AVO than others, with the little green checkbox and time clock and little web monitor graphic. So sample metadata is one of the most robust areas of GeoDIVA. It's one of our most earliest concentrations work of things. So we store information on more than 33,000 samples, including the physical storage location and what that sample's current form factor is for those samples that we keep track of at the GMC and in some cases individual AVO offices. The stratigraphy module is in progress, and Abby's going to talk about that a little later in this talk. We store, of course, information on eruptions and non-eruptive events. So it's about 1,000 events right now. This is pretty high-level information about the event. It doesn't walk down into eruptive phases. We store coal rock geochemistry. We have about 14,000 samples there. We store tephra metadata and glass microprobe data, and this is both available on the public website and a work in progress. And Abby will talk a little bit more about geochem searches, as will Christy and Matt later on today. But the story with tephra is that we store some basic sample characteristic information. And we started out storing just glass average information, and now we are storing point data. We were held up for a while, not on being able to store the point data, but on making sure that we could extract it out, because this is a relational database. And so the queries get very intensive. But Scott Crass figured out a way around that, and so good things are coming. Petrography, this was a module I started quite a while ago, and then we put fewer than 200 records into it and never developed a public search interface for it or an internal way for people to see it other than me and Abby. But if you've got questions about thin sections that AVO might have and that AVO people may have looked at, it's worth asking us to take a peek in those tables. It's easy to do. Images, this is what drives the public images you see on AVO's public website. And this is pretty robust. We've got, 36,000 photos. They're all tagged with volcano and eruption and some other important information. But also our image database was started in 2005, and it's been the same one from then till now. And so we have fantastic programmer Dane Harmon, who's working on a new multimedia database that will help not just AVO, but all the Alaska observatories. And Abby will talk more about that in a minute. And then, as I said earlier, we don't store any time series data, but we do store observations on those time series data. And so along with other observational data, we store logs, which is AVO's internal records of our observations about things, when we knew things and how, the remote sensing database, a seismic database, and the citizen science application is ash falling, which lets people let us know whether or not they did receive ashfall, and is an important part of our tephra studies. And so, and if you have questions about data here that doesn't have the little blue monitor on it and you would like access to it, then please do reach out to Abby, and she'll see what she can do. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. So transitioning over to how does data get into GeoDIVA? So we have a couple of separate processes. We have data that is collected by AVO staff, and that has a particular process that will be talked more about by Christy and Matt. So AVO staff provide us with sample and station and now stratigraphic section metadata, and upload photos that we approve into the database. And if AVO staff order geochemistry from an analytical lab, we're usually uploading those results immediately after the AVO person receives them, though they may not become available on the public geochem search until they are included in a publication. We also, I maintain a workflow that includes Google Scholar alerts in order to be informed of all new publications that are related to volcanism in Alaska. And from those new publications, I scrape station sample, geochemistry, any other type of data that we have the ability to store. This does take a long time, and there is definitely a decent backlog of publications that I have yet to get to, because especially for geochem, it can take a number of days to sort through and upload that data. And also we have, if you would like to include some data in GeoDIVA that is not currently there, please do feel free to reach out to us directly. We would love to work with you. It's often a heck of a lot easier for us to work with data in formats that you send to us versus me typing by hand data out of a PDF table in a publication. And Christy and Matt will talk a bit more about best practices for getting data into formats that are useful for us. So now we're going to do, I pre-recorded a couple of demos about how to use the public website and data that's available on it. These are really short, I promise, but just if you're not super familiar with our website, this will help you figure out how to use it. So please let me know if you can hear this.
Okay, so let's go over how to search for references on the AVO public site. So we want to go to Explore Data, then References. We have some general topics up here at the top, so you can get to our annual summaries, hazard reports, every geologic map in the database, assuming that one of us has remembered to tag it as a map. And we have the general search down here. So for example, if you are starting a project on Alaska and you want to search for all references about that volcano, you can do that. But let's say that you want to know only about geophysics related papers related to UNESCO. Let's do that search. And here are the results. So you can click on these to get more information. Some of them will have full text access attached to them depending on whether that text is publicly accessible or behind a paywall. So for example, if we want to look at this particular publication, you can see here the detailed reference, and you can click here to download the PDF.
Okay, hopefully that worked fine. I didn't hear any protests.
Okay, so let's go over.
And we have one more here for how to use the image search.
Now let's cover how to search for images. Images have their own tab under the main menu, so if we click on that, you can review the image use policy. Most things in the database are public domain if they were captured by AVO personnel. So let's say that we want to look at pictures of the Redoubt 2009 eruption. We would start typing under eruption unrest and select the relevant eruption. And let's pick a keyword. Let's say that we want pictures of the eruption plume. And we can change the results per page to 50 to see a few more images. So here we have the results. Lots of images to look at, 452 results returned, big eruption. And you can review these and click on any that seem interesting to you. So if we click on one, for example, we can see that this was taken by an AVO person and therefore is free to use. It has some suggested citation information if you'd like to use it. To find the full resolution image, you can either click on the full resolution link or click on the image itself, and it will show you the full resolution, which you can then download.
Okay, we pre-recorded those just in case of technical difficulties. Nope. I'm not going to talk about the geochem search and how to use that in this particular presentation because Christy and Matt are going to talk more about it in the next talk. But if you have any questions about how to access anything on the AVO website, please do reach out. We're happy to help. So transitioning now to talking about future improvements to the database. So we have a number of things here. I'm going to talk about the API, the multimedia database, and the stratigraphic sections in a little bit more detail on the next slides. But as Cheryl mentioned, we're also working on in situ geochem data. So the ability to be able to store geographic information about where points were collected on a sample, such as this example I'm showing here from Jamsheed's work. And that is currently ongoing, and we hope to see more about that soon. But one thing that's probably of interest to many people in the room is the GeoDIVA API. So if you were looking on the slide with all of the modules and noticed that there were some omissions that seemed large, such as, for example, that the sample metadata is not currently available on the public site, that's because the API is going to be providing this data. So the API will be accessible to the public. So if you are familiar with and enjoy using APIs, you'll be able to dig right in and start using it once it becomes available. The current iteration of the API includes station sample and geochem data. Maybe more things will be added to it in the future, but that's what we've got right now. The API is also part of an ongoing collaboration with EarthChem that will support integration between our two databases. And eventually, the API will become the underpinning of a nice new search interface for the public website, so that if you're not familiar with APIs and not really wanting to learn how to use them, you'll be able to access all that data through a GUI on the website. But the API will become available sooner than that. As Cheryl mentioned, the image database is getting a little long in the tooth in terms of how it works behind the scenes. So our programmer, Dane Harmon, is working on a new version of it called the multimedia database. Multimedia to emphasize the fact that this will be holding not just pictures, but also videos, which the current database does hold, but also things like documents and so forth. The current image database has a few things that on the internal side are kind of broken. So the multimedia database will fix those, but it also allows us to extend the current linkages that exist in the ImageDB to those other types of data-like documents. And it will have a more flexible tagging infrastructure, which will be really cool. And it will have a rating of importance or interest, which will allow us to use the multimedia database to store things that we don't necessarily think the public will be super interested in, and then we can use this importance or interest rating to kind of filter things for people. And as Cheryl mentioned, the multimedia database will become infrastructure that's available to all the US volcano observatories, not just AVO. Strat selections, so this is something that's been ongoing in the last couple of years. The idea about this is to eventually be able to allow the website internally first and then externally to automatically draw stratigraphic sections from data within the database and allow those stratigraphic sections to link to all the other modules in the database, such as eruptions and samples and so forth. So we've been working with, and I believe Matt Lowen has been kind of the driving force here. Matt's been working with the Strabo team to develop a Tephra section module and be able to bring that data over into a format that we can ingest into GeoDIVA. So we have all the tables set up within the database, and we have that upload routine functional now. And thanks so much to Jeff Larson, who volunteered to be the tester for the upload routine and has uploaded many sections from Makushin. So we know that upload routine is functional and works quite well and can be used not just by myself or Cheryl or other database administrators, but by AVO staff as a whole in order to upload their section. And what we're still working on in relationship to stratigraphic sections is creating the online search and view interface so that people who aren't database administrators can get the data back out and look at it. On the right-hand side is a notional, this was produced by Matt, many thanks to Matt, as a kind of first pass visualization of what stratigraphic sections could look like. It will undergo many iterations as we develop it for the website. So with that, that's everything we wanted to cover in this particular presentation, and we're happy to take questions.
Any questions in the room? Thank you so much, Abby. I'm giving people time to wake up. No? Well, if you have any questions about the database, you know who to email. So Abby is your person. So thank you so much, Abby and Cheryl, for that. And I guess we'll move on to their pairing talk, which is Christy and Matt.